Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Market Check, brought to you by BB. There is a no second best daily YouTube live stream to talk about markets. Happy Friday, guys. We have officially come into the end of another week. So I hope that we've had a great week thus far. Obviously, markets have been cooperating here over the past few days. Bitcoin is flirting with 98K. Will we stop here, or will we finally hit that golden 100K mark that has taken us almost 2 months to be able to reclaim? Find out probably not on Market Check, but maybe probably this weekend or something like that, guys. But either way, welcome. I'm Tommy. You also know me as Snorlax. I'm joined by Tucker, Louie, and of course, Prometheus. Welcome. Before I can get too deep dissecting the morning slate of some of our favorite assets and then some of our least favorite assets, you know what I'm about to ask you. Somebody in the comments has already got it down, man. Smash the like button for us. Smash those likes so that we can continue to provide you guys the content that we do on a daily basis. If you enjoy Market Check, hit the like button. If you don't enjoy Market Check, hit the like button just to spite us, so that you can keep hating on us. But without further ado, let's get into the meat of things. Like I said, Bitcoin flirting with 98K. I want to say we had jobs data or something like that this morning, just kind of based on the volatility that we're seeing. You know, it's kind of like the same thing that we saw earlier this week. Whenever we have any data at all, it seems like it's kind of just used as an excuse to end up squeezing the market higher, which is what we've seen, right? Like I said, Bitcoin trading at 98K. When will we hit 100K again? Will it be on this stream? Will it be next week? Will it be next month? I guess we'll just have to see. But I mean, the reality is that Bitcoin continues to be really the strongest asset in the market, especially during, New York session, when we see equities catching such a strong bid. Bitcoin is benefiting the most from those correlations to things like the NASDAQ. So I think we talked about this concept last week. It's like Bitcoin it's a risk on and a risk off beneficiary at this point. Not to say that it will never go down again, but this relative strength that we're seeing against equities, the best of both worlds from a beta standpoint against something like gold, it's pretty difficult to see something kind of changing that narrative right now. And somebody has also pointed this out in the comments, we're seeing a lot of weakness from altcoins at the same time. Will that lead to inevitable rotation if Bitcoin spikes higher, or is that a sign that if Bitcoin pulls back, altcoins are going to take a bit of a tumble? And truthfully, I think that these are things that we will only be able to answer hopefully next week, but you have to assume surely that these things are answered throughout the month of May. But yeah, that's enough about Bitcoin. Equities are up about 1.5% today. Speaking about the NASDAQ, the S&P is up a little bit less than that. NVIDIA up 2.5%. And then you've got a handful of altcoins as well, which are, sorry, my cat's clawing up my, oh shit. My cat just clawed me. Sorry. I just got this nice new leather chair that's from my grandfather, and my cat, of course, wants to use it as a scratching post. So I'm trying to deter him, and of course, he got my finger. But that's a great spot to pass you guys the mic now. How are we doing, guys? How was your week? What are we seeing in the markets?
Oh man!
I just tried to click and drag Tucker's chart on the.
Yeah, baby.
I'm like, why isn't my chart moving? Shot, man, shot.
Oh man, dude, I don't know. I think we look good, bro.
Seeing some strength, that's for sure. Seeing some strength in the market, and indices are up big today. Indices are up big, especially off the jobs numbers that we had. I know that was a big kind of uncertainty in the market, was how are the job numbers going to print today, this morning, and we actually had a beat over, the estimate on non-farms payroll. Was it non-farm? Yeah, non-farms payroll, and unemployment came right in line, and so I think you have, you know, a really nice window here. Eventually alts will have their heyday and their catch up trade. And, you know, as we've known, it, you know, generally only lasts, you know, a few weeks, but you'll have that strong catch up trade and beta will actually act as beta. But in the meantime, Bitcoin definitely has a spotlight.
Yeah, I think we look pretty good. I haven't really looked at indices too closely yet today, but Bitcoin is at a pretty big spot. Let's look at this though. Let's just check in. Okay, we look good. All right. That's really all you need to see. I don't think there's a ton of work to be done on the indices, right? Like this one definitely, right? This one definitely, but IWM, but what did we talk about? I think we talked about like 210, something like that. Where did I pull this from? Yeah. Come back above 200. I think it looks okay, but I don't know, man. Still a lot of look at that. That's I don't like that.
Yeah, definitely coming into a big level. It's gotta break that range high there, that accumulation range you have to the left, those highs.
Yeah.
Gotta break that. You know,
For
coming
sure.
into that right now.
Yeah, all these,
If it could flip it, you know, watch out. Watch
Yeah.
out.
Like this is nice to just have. Let's do this, and then let's do this. Gotta make
Like,
it
could you just
red.
imagine if they just ran back that COVID fractal on the Russell? It would just be insane.
That's really what we have. That's really what we have on the Russell. So back above 210. I think we're back. We're back in a big way on the Russell. So
Does the Russell even matter though?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Because you've got some individual small caps that are already like basically trading back at the highs.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Like Palantir,
A
Hood.
small cap?
Is Palantir a small cap?
Not anymore.
I would call it a small
Maybe
cap.
not anymore, but I still
300 bill. It's a 300 bill.
That's crazy.
Hey man, that's like 5 Solanas.
That's true. That's true.
Did you guys see Sailor with the earnings yesterday? He announced another large offering or issuance so that you can buy like, what was it, like 80 billion in Bitcoin? Was it? It was either 20 bill or 80 bill. I can't remember off the top of my head.
The next earnings, he's going to say it's going to be 150 billion Bitcoin. It's like he keeps doubling, tripling.
Yeah. How were the earnings, by the way?
What?
How were the earnings from MicroStrategy?
The earnings itself weren't the best, but I mean, the funny thing is it's flat, right? And it just goes to show like the market is not bidding MicroStrategy based off of the, you know, the revenue of the underlying company. It's all about that Bitcoin stack.
It is. It is indeed. Nothing really high time frame looks too different from the other day, but
it's just like this consistent behavior that we're seeing during New York session where Bitcoin siphons all the liquidity out of altcoins.
Yeah. That was pretty clean. I think we get a leg up to 180 on Sol here. That would be lovely. But
I'm kind of surprised on-chain Solana has not heated up a bit more, given that Sol is like 60 or 70% off the low.
How far?
Yeah, we're seeing some glimmers on chain Sol, but yeah, nothing crazy just yet.
Mm-hmm.
They're bidding cat coins on Sol again.
A little 20% move out of Sol from here. We'll take that. What would that be? 88 off the. Yeah. I like that. I like that. BCH mooning, is that real?
No way.
BCH.
Really?
I know Jack has pointed that out a little bit ago, earlier this week, I think.
One of our mods in the Discord is actually a gigabull on BCH. I talked to Tucker about it, but there's a really there's a
No,
smooth
no,
brain.
no. It wasn't BCH. It was
Oh, Satoshi SV.
it was BSV, bro. It was BSV. Come on.
Yeah, the smooth brain narrative that this is the real Bitcoin.
Bro, that's kind of a nice move. Look at that. But
There's so many like VC heavy coins that look exactly like that.
yeah.
I was going through my watch list throughout this week, like so many coins that look the way that BSV has looked since basically like 2024.
But look at
I
this.
think I would prefer it along the charts that are in an uptrend. Hot take.
I tend to agree.
Against Bitcoin. Against Bitcoin.
Speaking of pair charts, Sol ETH, Dorito, one of our Giga Chads in the Discord, he pointed it out to me. But Sol ETH is starting to backfill that Trump wick and is looking mighty, mighty good.
Tommy called top on this forever, bro. Do you remember?
I did. I still feel pretty good about that.
It's still in, right? It was this, right? Or wait, it was the Trump
It
wick?
was, yeah, the wick.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Do you still feel good about that?
I do.
It's okay. It's okay if not.
No, I do. I haven't really seen anything yet to kind of like deter me from thinking that, but
Yeah.
I still think on a relative basis, like Solana has topped in mind share. I guess the question is, does Solana on chain continue to just vastly outpace ETH, which is very possible. But I guess the set, like, it's a two-pronged question if that's how you're approaching it, because, you know, I look at the memes that are popping up on Solana and they're kind of lame, man. I mean, not really I think they're actually very lame. Not to shit on anybody's bags or anything. I hope everybody makes money on Sol. I've said before, it's not really my environment to make money. It's great if you are, but I do think we've kind of reached like this point of maximum meme coin dilution, where everything that spawns up now just seems incredibly inorganic.
And I put something out on my timeline earlier and I talked about it, but at this point, almost every single on-chain ticker is bundled, right? And if you're not an insider or you're not terminally online, you're probably going to get rugged. And I think that's going to condition the majority of retail that's going on chain to eventually where they're going to start having an adverse reaction to a lot of these on-chain tickers, and you're probably going to start to see a flow into tickers that are much more organic, you know, have, you know, strong narratives, you know, good strong teams behind them, and I think this could potentially spur some, you know, some of the other narratives that have potentially been, you know, that have been lagging the rest of the cycle, like RWAs, like we talked about on yesterday's stream.
So you're saying a flight to quality and to safer memes. I remember discussing that concept like back in the beginning of 2024. And I think I was super early to that thesis, but I do think that's what we're going to inevitably see with all this dilution. Not to say that, like, again, a lot of these meme coin charts are down bad, so the value destruction in a lot of them has kind of already occurred. But I do think on a long-term horizon, this is going to benefit memes that the internet actually recognizes, right? Like a Pepe, for example. And I would even throw maybe like 2 or 3 more in there that are fairly lindy and organic, but I don't want to say them on here because, you know, it'd just be like, oh, you're just gonna show your bags. Like, no, I'm not. I don't have exposure to them. I just tend to think that people are going to want to eventually come back to meme coins that more people recognize than just crypto natives.
Dude, what do you think about this, bro?
Brother, it is going to 80%.
What are you talking about? 80, bro. That is
80%.
why 80? Where is that
80%,
from?
bro.
Where? Why?
Because, okay, invert the chart. 80%.
It looks like Ethereum.
It made a.
Why not 88, bro?
I mean, it could go to 88. I just don't think it goes all the way down there. I think 80 is.
Could you imagine 88?
No, I can't. But we've got that wick from 2018 at like 80%.
This right here at 78.
Yeah, might as well be a bullseye. But I'm not a pessimist on crypto innovation to the point where I would call for Bitcoin dominance to like 100%. I just think we're seeing like we're really, I think within the last few months has been like probably, I don't know how to really word this, but we're finally seeing Bitcoin viewed the way that it should be within crypto. And I think that the dilution, especially in the meme coin space, is increasingly pushing people. And of course, also these VC tokens, just with excessive unlocks, is pushing people more and more to Bitcoin because it is the asset in crypto with the clearest utility that has TradFi acceptance.
Yeah.
And I think this structure on Bitcoin dominance reminds me a lot of what BNB did in 2021. And BNB came back and took those lows.
Wait, we're inverted?
Yeah. If you invert it and you look at BNB. Which I think is a good representation of altcoins in the space. Like, I think that we are coming down from that second high on BNB right now. We're eventually going to take those lows, and then that's going to be the bottom.
Brother, this is that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is 70. That is 70%, not 80.
And I think you could get a little more specific where you draw the line. But at the end of the day, like 75, 80% Bitcoin, does it really matter?
No, probably not. Man. Yeah, that looks kind of good. That looks kind of good. Let's see. Have you done this? I'm sure you've done this.
You know, you already know the answer to that question, Tucker.
And you've already fit it, bro. Pull it up. Pull it up. Whoa. All right, hold on. Hold up. A little more.
Oh, chop sideways till 2035.
Oh yeah, this isn't happening. This part is not happening, bro.
I mean, that's definitely expedited that basing out period, in my opinion.
I mean, if you have Bitcoin go to like anywhere from 130 to 200K, a Bitcoin dominance rotation from like 75 back down to 60 is pretty significant.
I mean, when we saw a move, from 61 to 55, I mean, alts flew at the end of last year.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, even a 10%, pop or pullback in BTC dominance is, huge for the altcoin sector at this point.
I just think altcoins are, and I don't think that like altcoins are dead. I just think it's a market of haves and have-nots, and it has been since the cycle began, right? In 2022, like we've had these small periods where Bitcoin dominance has come down, and altcoins haven't really needed that much leeway for a small number of alts to do really well. But I think people are just waiting for like this PVE, like QE conditions, ZERP, that are akin to 2020. And I don't really see any reason for that to, be replicated. And that doesn't mean that it's like inherently bearish for altcoins. It just means like these VC scams that people want to bid under the, assumption that they're still worth anything beyond just like tokens that VCs want to dump on you. Those people are going to continue to lose. We get new token launches every bull cycle that thrive. We get new meme coins every bull cycle that thrive. People want to hold shit like Arbitrum, wondering why they're underperforming.
It's true. It's very true. This just doesn't look like it wants to stop here. I know Jack has wanted like 66 on this. So we'll see. What's Bitcoin doing? Are we moving up still?
I'm just chopping a bit.
Yeah, seeing a little bit of a pullback here.
So it's kind of like the last level I view as turbulence for Bitcoin. We've done a 3 drive locally speaking.
What are you talking about?
Like the price action here over the last 2 weeks. 3 drives.
Down?
No, up.
Where?
Since like we cleared 92, we've given 3 drives. There's one.
You on like the 1 hour?
Yeah, we got 1 drive, 2 drive, and then that's our 3rd. So theoretically, if you're going to bust through here, there's going to be a lot of people probably shorting into this high.
I mean, yeah, this is the spot. You know, if
It's a
you
big
clear all of like this, you're gonna fly.
If you clear that, you're probably going to shoot right to like the highs, honestly.
Yeah, you're gonna teleport up here for sure. But that's like what, 99 basically. You have to get to 99 pretty much.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, and once we get there, you kind of want to pay attention, see how, the market's behaving, because I'm sure once we get there, a lot of people are going to be, aping longs, the idea and the thought of getting that 100K, that big psychological, round number, and kind of that, whole euphoria. Probably see a pullback around there, in my opinion. I'd be shocked if we get up through on the first go.
Upside volatility on Bitcoin. Does that even exist anymore? They like to slow grind us for ages and then finally just like blow it off. At least that's what happened last year.
Like back here. This took forever. September to November. It's a little slow grind and then bang in a week,
Encapsulated my entire honeymoon.
Were you on your honeymoon that whole time?
Yeah, I mean, not the whole time, but like for a lot of it.
Damn. They're still sending equities, bro.
I'm kind of salty. I shorted the Shmiko top on USDJPY last night and fumbled it.
What do you mean you fumbled it?
I mean, for a Forex pair, it dropped like 2% intraday, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, Forex, you don't get that kind of volatility that often.
The meme coin trader mind cannot comprehend.
What, you said a 2% move?
Yeah, from the local high.
Let's see. This?
Yeah. Would have been a nice one to catch.
Yeah.
I think this one probably completed its upside with that pump. But
damn. Yeah, that was kind of one of these.
I mean, 3 or 4% monthly drive on or monthly open drive on a Forex pair. That's nice.
That is nice. That is nice. Prometheus, let's see a chart, brother. Let's see a chart.
You want to see a chart?
Let's see a chart. Let's do some. I want to see your charts on majors.
All right,
I've had the same levels drawn forever.
yeah, let me pull it up here.
What do you guys think about XRP? Kind of don't know what to think.
I think it looks pretty good.
It
I mean, it's held up relatively. It's held up honestly the best out of just about any of the major tickers on the pullback.
Yeah,
It's almost like a handful of people own 80% of the supply. No, I wouldn't try to short this.
No.
Don't even know if I would try to do anything but spot long it.
No, and I think I told you guys somebody in my family went to high school with Brad Garlinghouse, and they said that he was like the most average of average people, but was able to go to Harvard, and it just goes to show how important connections are.
Damn.
I have some thoughts on Brad Garlinghouse, but I'll keep them to myself.
All right, what do you got, Prometheus?
Pull up the XRP chart here, just kind of following suit with you. No, I mean, if you want to look at some of the names specifically, like Hype, that's been leading the market, and kind of want to pay attention here. I mean, this Shmiko low, I wish I was paying attention to this, but it printed an absolute beautiful bullish div on the daily. And, now we're kind of coming up into this resistance level. We did see a pullback yesterday from it, but this thing just has so much buying pressure on it. Because, I mean, isn't the Hyperliquid Foundation just constantly twapping this thing?
Basically.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is just, it's so hard to get in front of this this ticker if you're wanting to look for shorts, but it's a great, great kind of spot bag to be holding, because it's just this perpetual grind up, especially from the lows. And, I mean, if they continue to perform and do very well in regards to, what they're providing for their users, I think that Hyperliquid could be, easily a top 10 token, probably by the end of this year.
It's isolated as well from, I mean, to an extent, but it is isolated a lot from market correlations. Because you can only trade it on the platform, right? I mean, I guess you can trade perps for it on something like Bybit or OKX, but they can't really move the market.
Yeah, and I think too, one of the most bullish, cases that Hyperliquid has is there's no dilution. Like there's no beta to Hyperliquid. It's just if you want exposure to Hyperliquid, you just bid Hyperliquid. You don't have to worry about, like a million tickers, that are diluting it. I mean, sure, there's a few a few meme coins that that are on it, but I mean, besides that, I mean, they don't really pull any mind share, and because of that, this is one of the most concentrated names in the sector, and I think it's just, I mean, that's so unbelievably bullish, especially in the massive dilution that we've seen across the majority of names in the broader sector. I think too, like I've been talking about, I think Solana has some decent upside here, especially moving forward, getting above that 154 level, there's really nothing but air, once you get above that. And when we were looking at that Sol ETH chart, right, it is now backfilling essentially the entire Trump pump wick. And oh, look at that. Jesus, what is this? But yeah, I mean, if we go and we look at that home come back down. But I mean, really crazy chart. And I mean, it just backfilled This is the Trump pump wick. Now we've basically filled it entirely, and I think especially as we move forward, I just can't see significant pullback on this versus its ETH pair specifically, unless the ETH Foundation does something big where they're able to capture revenue from the layer twos and from the other projects that are utilizing Ethereum specifically. And that's been a big issue for them, is they've lost out on so much potential revenue because they have kind of this like socialist view on or like belief system, and in a capitalistic market, I just don't think that's a very good way to go about perceiving how your layer one should be operating, right?
You're saying they should cut them off and force their liquidity to come home?
Yes, eventually.
I do think you're right, though, like to the extent that, or really kind of all of that, you have a lot of people who want their piece of the pie, and rather than try and bite off of the Ethereum pie, they'd rather just bake their own somewhere else and have people who are going to eat the ETH pie come eat theirs instead, which is going to hurt ETH naturally. I think we're seeing the same thing that we saw from L1s and L2s. We've been witnessing in real time from these meme coins. It's like, why would I bid your meme coin when I can spin up my own or bid something at a lower market cap that has a higher likelihood of making me a higher ROI?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. And I think too, like I mentioned, the adverse reaction that the market is eventually going to have to a lot of these on-chain tickers, because it's becoming, it's kind of like the LA vape cabal that we had at the end of last year, where the cabal was very, very real. And eventually, we're seeing very much the same thing, where it's a very concentrated group of people that are launching all these names and spinning them up and bundling the supply, and destroying a lot of the wealth that is wanting to go on chain, and that is still on chain. And that group of people that are willing to go on chain and that are still on chain is slowly but surely dwindling. And I just don't see a world in which the behavior can continue where it's cannibalistic in nature and can still thrive. So because that, I do think you're going to see a large rotation. I think on chain will still have its perks, and there'll still be runners, but at the same time, the market's probably going to likely tend to, I believe in the future, it's going to shift more towards more organic, more, quote unquote cleaner names, where you don't have to be terminally online, constantly staring at the chart, and worrying about every single tick on like the 30-second, whether or not, and looking at, all the wallets, tracking everybody on chain. It's very, very exhaustive for the market participant to be doing that.
Make financial nihilism lame again. Quote me.
And this is a chart too that I've kind of been paying attention to. I did talk about it in the Discord specifically. But these two charts are both jobs related, right? So on the chart that we have here, up at the top is United States initial jobless claims, and we are seeing a massive uptick, or we did see quite the uptick here over this last month. And this chart on the bottom is essentially stating that these people that are now filing, or that have filed for unemployment, are finding it harder to find new jobs, right? We did kind of break that range high, and the print that we saw this morning, specifically in regards to non-farms payroll and unemployment, the number that we saw here, let me pull it up here.
Yeah, what was the number this morning? I didn't even bother waking up for it, to be honest.
Yeah, so non-farms payroll expected was 133. It came in at 177, but that's still down from the previous print at 185. And it's kind of funny. They kind of cooked the books almost, where they used it was something like a death ratio thing. I don't even know, where they kind of fuddled the numbers and made the print seem a lot better than it is. Now the market is digesting it, as it is a positive print, and that there isn't any kind of fudging of the numbers. But it's been very apparent over the past 3 years, really since everything came back online post COVID, that jobs have been trending downward, in the sense that job openings have been trending downward, and that now we're starting to see an uptick in unemployment, and now we're also starting to see it people are finding it harder to that are unemployed to find new jobs, right? We're seeing a slowdown in job openings, and most people in their daily lives probably know someone, or an associate that has either been fired, or they have heard of some company that's doing massive layoffs. And that's likely stemming from, these large companies are really worried about the future outlook in regards to growth in the broader market. And the broader market has been largely services, based, and heavily reliant on growth as a whole. We've seen manufacturing be anemic since COVID, and that's only gotten worse. Trump's main thing has been, he wants to bring manufacturing jobs back to America, but new orders has sharply declined on this previous print. And we're also seeing prices rapidly increase, and then also manufacturing jobs rapidly decrease. So you're seeing a lot of these large manufacturing corporations actually not, they're not expecting a pickup in manufacturing onshore. And because that, I think there's a lot of cracks that are showing under the surface. And whether or not we want to admit it, people are viewing rate cuts as bullish, but historically, rate cuts are bearish, and rate cuts have marked the beginning of a recessionary environment almost every single time. So I think you have a small window of weakness here, with, jobs obviously, greatly decreasing and diminishing. You're starting to see unemployment, uptick quite rapidly. Manufacturing is not, as bullish as some may seem with Trump's policy. And because of that, I think the market's largely going to continue to have to rely on, these mega cap tech stocks for any, potential upside. And I think a move, back to all-time highs and above all-time highs is kind of out of the question now. And you need to start seeing some of these Trump policies that he believe will bring growth back to America and bring jobs back actually start to show. And then you can start to have the question of like, okay, the market's going to be forward looking and pricing in this, and, growth expectations are going to be good again. But right now, we saw a backfill of the entire, we just saw, as of today, essentially a backfill of the entire, Liberation Day sell-off. And so I think what you could see is a continuation of this trend that we had before it, where the market really starts pricing in a slowdown in growth. And people also have to take into account that both Amazon and Apple, arguably two of the largest stocks in the stock market, both, in their forward guidance for earnings, both guided that, the next few quarters might be pretty rough for the consumer as a whole. So I kind of want to, urge caution to a lot of people in the markets now that, rips are really for selling until we see things materially change in the numbers across the board.
Yeah, I think that you'll probably see it reflected in equity prices. I don't know if it's going to look like I'm really not in the camp anymore that we're about to see some like very long, drawn out, deep recession. I actually think what's much more likely is a replication of the stagflationary environment that we saw in the 60s to 70s, the 80s. And there's a lot of data, I think, that reflects that, right? That slowdown in growth that you were talking about, Prometheus. I really think that's probably where we're headed. And I don't think that is, I think that's just going to create different opportunities, right? I mean, we've seen over the last few years, obviously, most recently, the rebound from 2022, but you go a little bit further back, we obviously had the COVID gains where we're just melting higher basically every week for 2 straight years. I think we're going to graduate into a bit more muted indice price performance, but at the same time, there's going to be individual names that still benefit greatly because efficient markets and efficient capital allocation will inevitably find them, right? Something like a Robinhood, for example, it's always going to be a different small mid cap, probably a big tech stock outperforming. You have to imagine that AI will continue to be prevalent, maybe not always reflected through something like NVIDIA, but that there will be new tickers. Maybe it's humanoid robotics. This is a concept that we've talked about a lot on this show. And then I think as well, the other thing that was very important to note about that stagflationary period in the 60s, 70s, and 80s is that commodities hugely outperformed. Right, commodities were, I think, historically depressed against equity pricing back during this period. So, in theory, you think that this will benefit something like Bitcoin, probably crypto as a broader asset class.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I mean, if you look at the commodities sector in general, if you go look at, the ag names and precious metals and all that, there has been, if you go and you look at them, I mean, there's been kind of this dislocation in commodity prices specifically. Like if we go and we look at like copper futures, copper is generally a great risk on signal, but in that stagflationary environment, commodities do thrive. And if we go and we look back at, if we go look back at that period, during the 70s and into the 80s, we really saw that rapid appreciation in gold price, and a shift to more hard assets and less into speculative growth assets as a whole. Now, question for you, Tommy. Do you think we are right here in gold? Do you think we're kind of in that $300-$400 region on gold? Or do you think we've kind of topped?
I don't know what to make of gold on a higher time frame, to be honest. No, I really don't know, because I think if you're of the belief that we are about to replicate like a 2008 style recession, which I am not, then I would say that gold is most surely topped here, because that was something that we saw in 2008. Gold was at that point, I mean, it tops with everything, right? And then as everything gets sold off, so does gold. So I'm not in that camp. I don't know how much like relative upside I think it has, within like the next year or two. And admittedly, I don't trade gold enough to really give too strong an opinion either way. But if we are going to replicate a prolonged stagflationary period, I would assume that gold grinds higher, but I would also assume that you're probably going to see an inevitable rotation of your traditional gold bidders into Bitcoin, actually, as the prospect of investing in gold becomes decreasingly attractive, simply because the relative market cap is so high. It's like 20 to 25 trillion at this point. So, how much upside can you realistically expect from it? At a certain point, gold gets so big that beating inflationary fears, beating the fears of your currency debasement, you can only do so much to kind of hedge against that. And I think for that reason, Bitcoin becomes increasingly attractive, right? Because it's only 1/10 of the current gold market cap. Now, I think the next wave of inflation, you will probably see Bitcoin really graduate into that digital gold narrative.
Yeah, I tend to agree as well. And I mean, we're already starting to see it really. And we kind of saw glimpses of it with this most recent sell-off in equities, where we saw real strength in Bitcoin specifically with a sell-off in the dollar. There was the kind of the fear that the United States of being, holding United States issuance and debt, and we saw Bitcoin actually be a benefactor of that. And so that was, to me, really kind of just a glimpse of what Bitcoin could potentially hold in the future, especially if you start to see a lot of these other countries really largely shift away from the United States dollar, which we are starting to see, in small cases. But as we start to move forward, there is no real second proxy currently for the United States dollar to hold as, global reserve currency. But Bitcoin did show tremendous strength in the face of, a weakening, in a weakening of the United States dollar and the reliance of using it as a global reserve currency.
Did you see China dumped a ton of gold? I think it was last week. They dumped the top.
I did not. I mean, how much did they dump? I mean, probably a ridiculous amount, but was there, what was the reasoning behind that?
I think we lost Tommy.
Did he just rug?
For sure.
I mean, they looks like they sold at least the local top.
Yeah, I think
Will
gold could do
China-
something like that.
Whoa, Tommy.
Will China
back.
kickstart? Wait, how far delayed am I right now?
Like 30.
As soon as I asked you.
Like
Oh,
30.
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, so I think you said how much did they get rid of, Tommy?
Let me look it up.
Ooh, here goes ETH.
Is it?
Here goes ETH.
Whoa.
Come on.
Hold the horses, hold
Oh.
the horses.
The little 15-minute meat stick.
Yeah. I'm on a low time frame.
Louis on the 1 minute.
Yeah, he's on the 1 second. He's watching every tick.
Nah, let's go.
Yeah, I think this is
Going.
I think this is, a good showing here off of ETH. Actually came right back into that level. Look at that.
Yeah, perfect retest.
Wow.
Perfect retest.
Yeah, I mean, it's trading cleanly. I mean, what you don't want to see out of ETH, which what we saw, on the entire way up, where if we zoom out a little bit here, was, we saw a sell-off and then just slow, grindy price action, no trending move up. We're unable to break the highs, led to another sell-off, slow, grindy price action up, underside retest, unable to trend, another sell-off. We're right here. We're coming back into a key level, and 2100, I think, is on everybody's radar at this point. We're getting above this previous, resistance level. We did just back test it, on the hourly, which is nice. We're starting to see some strength. And if ETH can do something, I mean, alts are going to be a huge benefactor, as we know. So everybody would love to see some strength out of ETH here, no doubt. And now is not the time for ETH to start seeing a large pullback here, because then I think if you really start to see, and especially if we move out onto the higher time frame, if we start to see, you know, rejection at these levels, then you probably see, you know, you could definitely see something like this, you know, where we start, you know, a longer accumulation phase that would be, you know, quite drawn out and pretty annoying. But yeah, especially that's the must get over it level, the 2100 level. And if you get above 2500, it's turn your brain off, we're bullish. Like really get above that, things look really, really good. But if you guys have any charts and you guys want us to chart any tickers specifically, throw them out there in the chat. We will we'll try to get to them.
Check the 10
Keep it above 50 mil.
Check the 10-year.
Is it dying?
I don't know. I haven't looked. I just want to check it.
It's flying.
Come on, ETH.
This is really interesting too, because one of the, like, the market is shoving Jay Powell into a corner, and Louis talked about this a little bit, but really the market is backing him into a corner, and the, you know, for, you know, the probabilities that the market, you know, is expecting for rate cuts is, I think, 50 basis points more of cuts this year than the Fed had originally projected in their models. And that to me screams that they, you know, we're pushing them into a corner, into a place where they don't necessarily really want to go. And with this most recent job sprint that I talked about, if you, you know, if we saw a super, you know, really, you know, negative print, then that kind of screams potential emergency rate cuts. But if we saw, you know, kind of a muddled print, then to me, I don't really find much signal out of it. But this hot print, you know, is something that the Fed could potentially take as the job market's still strong, and because of that, we you know, keep rates you know, higher for longer. And I don't know if the market's really going to want to digest that. The market clearly, you know, has shown that it wants rate cuts and is perceiving rate cuts as bullish. But if they keep rates, you know, higher for longer, I don't think the market's going to necessarily like that.
Market gonna learn today. I mean, I think that for me is like, I guess I see the argument for yields to go higher if we're going to enter potentially like a stagflationary period and inflation wants to come back. But it's very difficult for me to look at the 10-year chart on a higher time frame and be like, yeah, I'm super bulled up on that chart.
Yeah, no.
But I also know, like, if the market is going to, like, if it is already bottomed or if it's going to set the low, like at some point in May or June, 10-year probably does go higher in response to that. Right? Because you have to account for the wealth effect that that's going to create, and that will create inflationary pressure.
Yeah, and if you zoom out on this chart specifically, I mean, this to me just looks like a classic distribution rounding top. And it would be really, really hard for me to view this chart. Whoa. It'd be really hard.
Looks like the old Bitcoin top.
Yeah, it does. It's really hard for me to view this chart as, you know, going and setting a new all-time high at this point. I think rates hit, you know, their high, barring that we don't have a massive resurgence in inflation, and this probably rolls over. And if we get a stagflationary environment, you also have to understand that or have to understand that the Fed knows that entering in and dealing with stagflation is far, far, far more difficult to deal with than and deflationary is far more difficult to deal with than inflationary. And because that, you'll probably see, you know, the Fed step in and really, really try to stimulate stimulate the markets and stimulate growth. By doing that, they will, you know, drastically cut rates.
Pull up DXY.
Yeah, I had it up here earlier. But I mean, you're getting you got kind of like your underside retest of this trend line. And, you know, I mean, the Dixie just looks, I mean, I think the most genuinely like you could probably get is maybe run this high. But I'd be shocked if the dollar shows that much strength in the current environment. I think you definitely come back down into, you know, mid 90s, and then, you know, really reevaluate there, see if there's much support for the dollar. But I mean, it could easily very much well blow through that level, and then you're coming back down to, you know, 90. Something like that, something like a waterfall.
90, dude, that would be wild.
Yeah, that'd be absolutely crazy.
I still think the dollar looks like garbage, man.
Oh, it looks horrible. I mean, you just blew through any form of support that you had up here. You know, as a one-way train. Came back.
It's like maybe you get a bounce. Maybe you get a bigger bounce here, but
yeah, I mean, at most you come up to like maybe 103. I mean, that's a huge move on the dollar. I would be shocked if you even get that. I mean, at most probably honestly like 101.
And I think the irony of it is that. Sorry. Wait, what were you gonna say, Louis?
I think it's probably going to look similar to the little bounce that we saw in 2017. I've been like, these moves have been tracking almost identical. So you had like a big drop. Then you saw that bounce there, like into range lows, like kind of like we're doing now. Yeah. Yeah. Probably something like that.
Wow. Yeah, that would be crazy. I mean, let me pull a fractal on that here real quick.
I think Pepe's about to rip.
Something like that off the dollar. Wow. That would be a vicious, vicious move. What if we get even something more so like that? That'd be crazy. Sweep these lows, kind of similar to 2017 like we did back there. Yeah, that'd be crazy. Came back all the way down. Somewhere in here. Think Pepe's gonna rip?
I think it might.
Of course, bro. ETH is still looking pretty solid here. Has Pepe just not moved yet?
Yeah. I think it's a good little catch-up trade.
Yeah, I think so too. I've been talking about it. The structural similarities that a lot of these charts are showing to what Farcoin did. I think it's, you know, damn near identical. You definitely want to see Pepe get kind of back above this level. You know, I mean, if you zoom in here, we wicked, you know, we're just kept wicking these highs. Had trouble getting back above it.
Yeah, you're gonna get a 50% move minimum once you break this neckline here. Just literally just flagging right at the resistance, and in bullish environments that's bullish. In like ranging bearish environments, this look, people will be like, oh, deviation, back inside, short it down to the lows. But bullish environments, you get that tight little range, that tight little price pinch consolidation right under that resistance or at that resistance level. Usually that's just like the reaccumulation before the big move. So I think there's a big catch up for Pepe here. If the markets cooperate with us today, I think it could go. I think it can go.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, we're seeing huge price compression here. Definitely getting that bull flag, like kind of like you were talking about. Get something like this, pop back above it, underside retest, or retest it, flip it as support, and then bang, something like that. Yeah, because we already swept that high, so I mean, you kind of got clear skies up until you get, up into this region. Then once you get above this, I think you literally fly, up to 15 cents.
There she goes. There she goes. Come on now.
Come on.
See if we can get a live pump out of Pepe on the stream here. That'd be awesome.
That'd be pretty cool.
What do you want? The 4 hour, brother?
Drop it down, brother.
We're
Drop
gonna
it down.
Yeah, there you go.
In my day, we used to hit up the 1 second.
There we go. Look at that. Here we go. Here we go.
Wait.
Here, let's zoom in. Let's zoom in.
No. What are you on here?
The 1 minute. Doji. We're dojing.
Smash it and run.
Yeah, I've seen this price compression here. Get back above this mid range. It's looking good. Eventually, I think you're definitely going to see a rotation out of Bitcoin here. Eventually,
Out of Bitcoin?
Whoa.
Not necessarily out of Bitcoin, but like you're not going to see
rotation.
You'll see. You won't. I don't think you're going to see the vacuum that you're seeing out of Bitcoin right now. I mean, Bitcoin is acting as the Hoover 3000, and yeah, I think you're definitely, alts. If Bitcoin
can
can
the Dyson, brother, the Dyson 3000,
the Dyson 3000,
Yeah.
yes, I think we could most certainly see a nice rotation. But you always got to hedge your bags, boys. You always got to hedge your bags.
Here it goes. Here it goes.
And I think, on a chart like this, I think Trump has got quite a bit of room to the downside. Super inorganic price action, inorganic, pump, retrace this. It's definitely in the cards. I think this is a great chart for downside, and for anybody that's wanting to find something to hedge any long exposure that you may have.
A lot of the people who are top holders now, I think, are just delta neutral, holding spot and shorting on perps.
They're trying to get that. They're trying to get that dinner.
Yeah,
I would say I think it could bounce here. If it doesn't, then it's going to roll. Right. Or if you get a bounce here, that might be a good opportunity to short it. But there's the one thing that makes me skeptical on this thing coming lower is just a strong crypto market. If the crypto market's strong, I don't think this thing's going to continue to bleed down to zero, as if the crypto market's raging. Will it go up less? Absolutely. Unless like they keep harping on this whole dinner thing and doubling and tripling down on it, But this is probably the spot to look for a bounce. Maybe use that bounce for a short, or maybe just try to scalp it. But yeah, if you lose this little order block that you're at here, that's coming back to the origin of this big pump. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you're breaking above like mid 13s, you're probably going to like 20, 21 bucks.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, if it gets above this region right here, you know, because I mean, especially if you zoom out on the daily, the same area, you know, on the daily close is just, I mean, this is head and shoulders all day long. But yeah, if we close on the daily above that level, I think you got to watch out, because then it's gonna head higher, and you're gonna start really probably coming up into these levels. Got to watch out for that. Get it back above that, you know, this level, 1330, coming back up into these supply regions most likely.
I just don't know what other upside catalyst this has. I agree it could be dragged up with the broader crypto market, but
Yeah.
I guess maybe they're like, well, the top 1,000 holders get a free NFT. We simply create as many bag holders as possible on a token that has 4 million in daily unlocks.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah. When
I
is the
don't-
next block?
I
It's
think
every day.
It's daily. Yeah.
daily $4 million unlocks.
It's every single day, Louis.
When is it? Tomorrow, fellas.
Tomorrow and every foreseeable day into
Oh
the
my
future.
God. That's hysterical.
Oh my gosh.
That's hysterical.
I'm gonna look at some equities. Yeah, big move out of MicroStrategy. I mean, this chart has been an absolute monster, and Jack has pointed it out, but this thing has been front running Bitcoin to a T, and it's largely been front running Bitcoin really ever since the lows back in September, right? So I think
Yep.
MicroStrategy could definitely be giving us some really good signal into where Bitcoin's headed next. You know, the huge announcement on, you know, more purchases on BTC, huge buys, adding to their stack. Saylor said it before. He wants to get to 10% of the supply, and then right off into the sunset. So,
Hang on. Do you have forgot about this? Will you take a look at that?
yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Absolutely.
God, Michael Saylor owning 10% of the Bitcoin supply would be disgusting.
Yeah,
could you imagine?
It would make me not want to hold Bitcoin.
It's scary.
He wants to do it, and he's going to do it. Like, he's trying.
That's crazy, man.
What are they at right now, like percentage wise?
2.
I think like 4.
Yeah,
Is
I
it
think
what?
they're
3 or 4?
4. I think they're 4.
Jeez.
Yeah, I think they're going. He's going for 10. God, that'd be crazy, man.
Like, if you're another like entity that wants to get involved in Bitcoin, like doesn't like see, and honestly, I think he's doing it on purpose. Like, he's just not stopping. And eventually, you know, it's like the companies or the countries or whoever wants to start, you know, adding Bitcoin to the balance sheet. When they see this, I feel like this has to kick their, you know, their roadmap or whatever they want to do into hyperdrive, because, like, you know, they're not going to, I don't think they're going to sit there and just let this guy buy up all the Bitcoin and they get stuck, you know, not, you know, I feel like it's kind of like he's like trying to send the game theory of Bitcoin on the balance sheet into hyperdrive here. And I think it's probably going to work. We're already kind of seeing it happen. I think there's like over 70 publicly traded companies that hold Bitcoin on the balance sheet now. And that's likely going to continue to rise. including states and countries.
How is he custodying all his Bitcoin? Is it through Coinbase or what?
They have multi-sigs. I'm pretty sure. I'm
That's
pretty sure
it?
I'm pretty sure they have a bunch of multi-sigs.
That's not enough. They need more than that, bro. Multi-sigs have been hacked many times.
It wasn't Bybit hack.
Bybit had a multi-sig, bro. What?
Yeah. What is that North Korean group called?
Lazarus.
Yeah, they did an overlay on the multi-sig UI and made the transactions look legit or whatever, but in the back end, had malicious code behind it, which is
That's
crazy.
what I'm saying, bro. What? I mean, he's holding Bitcoin on a multi-sig. That is
No,
The single biggest risk to a $2 billion
I'm
asset
sure they
is
have.
a
I'm
Google
sure they
Chrome
have.
extension.
Dude, what would the North Koreans do if they hacked Sailor? Would they market nuke it or what?
No, I'm sure they have tons of backstops in place.
Dude, I don't
And
even
let's-
know.
And let's
If that happened, dude, we would be so fucked.
Let's
it would
be real, too,
beyond bro.
dude, Sailor puts it on a cold storage wallet and shoves it up his butt.
Probably, yeah.
Come on, let's be real. All right, base Farcoin.
Is this Farcoin or base Farcoin?
This is Farcoin.
Okay.
I think you could see a little bit of a pullback here in Farcoin in general. It has been a little bit of a lagger the past 2 days, but I mean the majority of alts have, right? So I could definitely see us coming back down into the support. Retesting this previous resistance level. Maybe one more time before you see higher. But I mean, it's most certainly been a leader, and if Farcoin, does get that pullback, I think you could see a little bit of a pullback here in base Farcoin. I mean, even down into something like 32 mil, you shouldn't really be shocked by at this point. You're holding beta, you're holding something that is, it's on base, it's not on Solana, it's not the alpha. It's a little bit of a pullback here in Farcoin in general would probably lead to something, maybe at most to 32 mil market cap from base Farcoin. But you did just clear on this most recent run up, that last major supply region that we had at 50 mil market cap. And because of that, if we do get, the next leg up should definitely lead to new all-time highs. I don't think there's too much resistance or overhanging supply in this chart anymore. It is a fresh chart. It is one of the, the hot narratives and names on the market right now. And because of that, seeing a little bit of pullback here is nothing, major. If you bought down here on these lows, you're up, let's just pull it from here. I mean, you're still up 170% to where we're at now. And I talked about it with Kita in the Discord specifically, but these names that saw the big run up before, while the market was kind of trading sideways and chopping and consolidating, and the majority of, the other alts were doing nothing. These charts saw, massive price appreciation because that you might see some sideways price action and some reaccumulation before your next leg higher. Is nothing abnormal, right? Just because you may see some other tickers, on that same chain or, on base, be running up and your name in specific isn't running up is nothing really to be fretting about. A lot of those other names that are running now are actually, having their first moves off the lows, and are really seeing something like this. So any bit of price action, sideways price action is nothing to fret over at this point, right? You had a big run up, seeing some sideways price action is to be expected. And I think that's where a lot of market participants get really tripped up, is they expect it to be a one-way freight train, and that's not often the case. Seeing sideways price action is really healthy for a ticker, and if you look at a lot of these on-chain tickers that went up, like 600, 700, 800, 900% in the course of, a week, have massive drawdowns. I mean, even on this chart specifically, right? You saw a huge price, huge move up. And because of that, you have tons and tons of people that are deep in profit, taking profits all at the same time. and you see massive pullbacks, from the all-time highs, and then it takes a long time for these charts to base out. Where if you have, more healthy price action, more stair stepping up, you get, people taking profits, pulls back, people reaccumulate, next leg up, people take profits, pulls back, people reaccumulate. And that's a much more healthy price action than, it being a one-way freight train, because these one-way freight trains, it's really, really hard to time the top. But, if you don't get out in the top, you're going to be, down a significant amount from those all-time highs in relation to if it just stair stepped up and you can just play the levels. It's a lot easier to play names that are stair stepping up than names that are going up in, in one fell swoop.
Yep.
I actually think, it's been ranging for a little bit, we're just kind of hit a big level, just kind of reaccumulating in this zone. I actually think if Farcoin on Sol pulls back, I think we could actually see a significant bid into base Farcoin. I think the reason that Sol Farcoin hasn't really had any significant pullbacks yet is the reason why base Farcoin has been lagging. I think there's a big kind of follow-up trade that we're seeing where, people are trading Farcoin, taking profits, and then rolling it into base Farcoin and kind of getting like a double trade out of it, we'll see, right? But like you said, these are two tokens that had been running off the lows for over a month now, while most of the market was doing absolutely nothing. So to see these stall out while the rest of the market is starting to move makes a lot of sense, right? But yeah, I actually do think that if Sol Farcoin pulls back a little bit, I think you could see some of those profits flow into base Farcoin for kind of like that follow-up trade. But we'll see, we'll see. But I like where it's at. I like the reaccumulation we're seeing on base Farcoin. I think it's healthy. Right. And then, if once we do go for that next leg, we got a ton of market structure built up in the chart now that will hold up as support if we needed to moving forward. So, nothing wrong with it. Right. Way better than going up in a straight line, because if you go up in a straight line, you're coming down in a straight line.
Yeah, no, I agree.
There's a very old quote from Nomad that talks about that concept. The higher you go, the more you kind of price out people looking to bid. And what tends to happen with momentum is that when it comes back down, the lower bid support will ultimately be.
Go back to that Farcoin chart real quick, Prometheus. Look to the left and look at Farcoin's first run. See how that was just straight up. Not even out. That final leg was just straight up. Look how boom, straight down. You're gonna go straight up. You're going straight down. Now, look at the price action now off the lows. You have a healthy uptrend. You got small consolidations along the way. That's market structure that's going to hold up price, at least in theory, where buyers will be willing to step in, if and when you get a deep pullback, right? So when you go up in a straight line, yeah, it's fun while you're in it, but if, in the longer term, it's not so fun, because you see just how fast you come back down versus, this is way of a healthier of an uptrend here. And that's a good thing, in my opinion, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. And you just really, it feels good if you're in something like this. But from a longevity standpoint for the chart in general.
Yeah, if you don't sell the Pico top, you have not much, chances of getting out.
Yeah, and a lot of the times what people do is they see, a big pullback like this, huge wicks to the upside, and we see, and they're like, oh, I'll sell on this next bounce, and we just never get it, and then you've basically retraced your entire bag, and now you're barely up on your position.
Yeah.
Thanks for playing.
Yep.
But I think that's a good spot to look to be wrapping up the show, guys. We hope that you enjoyed Market Check today. We're not going to be doing all of the product shows that we usually do. They're great products, but we're just going to show you guys the BB terminal here as we wrap up the show. But we hope you all have a great weekend. We hope like I said, that you enjoyed Market Check. Make sure to tune in for Market Talk with the legendary King Wabi later this afternoon to really close out your week. And as always, we will be back for another episode for Market Check next week, Monday. We are live Monday through Friday whenever the New York Stock Exchange is open at the same time. Well, we try to get it started at the same time every day, which is around 11:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. But yeah, until next week, guys, thank you as always. Stay safe. And before we officially send you off, enjoy this little bit talking about the BB Terminal, which is your go-to tool for this cycle, whether you are an active trader, an investor, or an on-chain degen.
Tired of outdated trading tools, confused charts, dozens of tabs, endless stress? You're not alone. Introducing BB Terminal, your all-in-one command center for crypto trading. Track your portfolio, monitor the markets, stay ahead, all in one place. From chaos to clarity, from struggle to success. BB Terminal.
Boom.